All right, I understand. I get it. I should watch Winter Night's Lazzo. I heard. Uh, there are so many of you guys that wanted me to get to this one, so I figured it would be a disservice if I didn't just go for it. So without further ado, let's jump right into the reaction portion, followed up with the breakdown as per always. Let's go. All right. I saw a comment.
Think themselves to be all-knowing.
Never mind.
But we alone
I'll wait.
are wise to the virtue in those acts of folly. In this war, not even a single pawn may be spared. Because on this chessboard, checkmate is not where the game ends.
Love the design of that butterfly moth thing. Somebody said this one didn't have as much movement as the prior, but that's not too much of a factor.
We are gathered here today to remember our dear comrade. In honor of her sacrifice, all work should halt for half a day as the nation mourns her passing.
Dude's got a
Really
huge
half a day?
schnoz. I'm sorry, I couldn't look at anything else.
Are blood and tears. But Mayor, even speaking as a banker, that sounds a little unconscionable.
Rosaline died in a foreign land. But you heartless businessmen and dignitaries, always with a convenient excuse to remain in the comfort of your homeland, you couldn't hope to understand. So why don't you keep your mouths shut? We don't want to make the children cry.
Hey, come on now. Even I don't think this is the right time or place for a fight.
The dubbing effect.
Utterly risible.
Though her methods tarnished her honor, Loafalta's sacrifice is a great pity.
The designs are fantastic.
Her loss shall not hinder our progress. But Dottore, what of Scaramouche and the Gnosis from Inazuma?
Conventional wisdom holds that divine knowledge cannot be rationally comprehended.
Huh.
After conquering the divine gaze, he will make his next move.
Yes, the divine gaze.
It's time to
As
end
they all should
tonight's
be.
foolish theatrics. Right now, you have no captive audience. Let every worthy sacrifice be carved in ice. With this nation, endure for all time. In the name of Her Majesty the Tsaritsa, we will seize authority from the gods.
There's definitely some design things, some cool little bits
Absolute peace.
that I can talk about in this
Such
one.
is the gift from the Tsaritsa. Such is Her Majesty's benevolence.
And that? That'll be fun to talk about.
Now you rest in this coffin, encased in layer upon layer of ice. Yeah, but Rosaline, I promise you, your final resting place will be the entirety of the old world.
Like a phoenix moth kind of thing. I like that.
Say, you're looking very young today, Doctor.
Weird
You know
sentence.
very well that I do not take that as a compliment.
So, where's the segment in the prime of his life then?
Ooh.
He's busy with a little experiment in blasphemy.
Collei, time to head out on patrol.
Okay, Master Tighnari. What was that?
Again, the layering is nuts in these projects. All the time that would take. Okay, so there are definitely unique things to talk about, so let's get right to it, shall we? All right, so the first thing I really wanted to talk about was kind of the design of this little moth butterfly creature thing. It's kind of neat. I like that they utilized the fact that it's red and decided to make the background blue, so you get this nice, very striking contrast between the two. I've just recently mentioned the red versus blue color theory relation in a prior video, so I won't dig too hard into that exact thing. But I just like that I'm seeing it again. It's a very strong contrast, very great for the design. The overall shot deciding to use that and kind of blend with the whole snow ice theme that's kind of encompassing the rest of the visuals in this project, and having it contrast directly with this little firebug is kind of cool. I just appreciate that. The next topic here is a little bit more on a compositional trick than it is a design one, but I like that they have this white glow around this character to make her stand out a little bit more, even though she's wearing white and that would naturally stand out against the back, the darker color. It's nice to have that glow for a little bit of that like ice kind of misty like frost look, but also a little bit of an ethereal look. The god rays coming in up here, these like streaks of light, are also going to make the white dark contrast not work quite as well visually. So having the extra push from behind the character design is a really smart move, and I appreciate that. I usually don't touch on character design too much in these videos because it's not really my field, but what is up with this? What is up with this erect Squidward Gringotts goblin looking face? What's up with this deformed Monopoly Man looking ass bitch? What is up with this top hat going through the sky dimmadome motherfucker? What is up with this character design? He looks goofy. I mean, it's perfectly fine, and obviously it's very unique and varied, and I appreciate that. I like a lot of the design and the character, but bro looks like a baked bean, or specifically right there. What is up with this? I only stopped here to talk about this since it's where I first noticed it, but the phoneme matching, the mouth movements, the shapes and everything, being of the Chinese match rather than the English is something that is obviously very, 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 very common. It is generalized practice to just deal with the existing mouth flaps and dub over it. And if you can adjust them, you should. In this case, I'm kind of bummed that they didn't, because it would be relatively easy just to change some of the mouth flaps around and change some of the shapes because of the rigs that they use. And they probably didn't take too long to export or anything given the 2D nature. So it's kind of a hit or miss. I understand why they didn't do it, but I always see this like in a professional thing. You know, you're doing things multilingual. You should probably just put in the extra time and money to do that dub properly. It's a bit of a nitpick. I'm not actually disappointed about it, but it was worth the subject because it's rare I get to talk about that sort of thing. And since I noticed it so obviously between this and the next character talking, that I might as well bring it up. All right, so in this shot and with this character, I like these chains that are by the face. I think it's really nice that they put in the effort to make sure they stayed behind that faceplate, the like guard going down on the side of his cheek. That's really nice detail. Obviously, layering is important for things like that. You got to get things right. Otherwise, the chain being outside and like connecting over here and then like kind of pseudo going back under would have just looked goofy and wrong, and there would have been a whole layer problem. But I do like that they put in that effort. Like, I'm almost positive going through this frame by frame and watching how that chain bounces around that they probably used what's called an IK rig, or an inverse kinematic rig. And basically, it's a similar rig to how some bones are handled in CG, but you can also do them with 2D assets if you do it properly. You can basically choose a point, and have a rope effectively, especially in this case, kind of connecting the two of them together and leaving those unrigged. So you just kind of have this loose hanging floppy line, whereas both of the other corners are pinned to a specific point in whatever rig you're working with. And again, can be used for bones and like physical riggings of bodies, but is often used as well for things like this. But the way that it's swinging under there, I'm pretty sure that they set it on there and then they gave it a physics pass. I'm not entirely sure what program they use for these projects. I assume, again, could have been After Effects. They do have some ability to do things like that, but there are other programs out there. This could have been done in a 3D program and could have gotten the exact same effect, but I'm not entirely sure. Either way, I'm pretty sure that's the process they used, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. All right, so I stopped here because this is like a perfect shot to show everybody how bone rigging kind of works. The hand is a very good way to do that, and I figured, why not make it a teaching moment? So basically right here, the way we're looking at his hand, he's got this like blocked off, that's his palm, you know, just kind of being there as one solid chunk. It really doesn't do too much. It might get a little bit of squashing and stretching. You might just slide the piece around as things need to be animated and certain movements of the hand might need to happen. But mostly the fingers here, it's kind of self-explanatory because it's just like your actual hand. You have a bone, a bone, a bone, and of course a bone, and then you have straight lines running out with stops at each one, and each one of these controllers could be pivoted at this point right here, and just like a finger, be moving as you would. So you can do the same thing with any rig. You get these long points and the little lines coming off of them, and you can just play around with that and make the hand do what you want. In this case, it's very limited because they didn't need to move the hands too much, but I'm almost guaranteeing that this hand was probably fully rigged and ready to go, but just for this shot specifically, they didn't have to do too much movement. It looked more like they were slightly sliding things back and forth and kind of nudging them in place more than they were freely moving the bones around, but sometimes that's all you need for certain movements. You don't always have to overdo things in order to sell something. It can be subtle. A lot of animation might seem over the top and very exaggerated, and while that is a common practice in a lot of styles of animation and is widely used worldwide, it's not always going to sell the emotion, the mood, the shot specifically you're working on. Just like this, the focus is on this test tube thing, not so much the fingers. You know, you don't have to make them move. Like, it doesn't have to do villain fingers like, yes, here's my tube. I'm just babbling now, but you get the point. I believe I've talked about the lighting on the last video, but I don't know if I talked about it quite enough because this is a really cool multi-pass, multi-layer shot for lighting that is extremely complex in the grand scheme of things, especially for rigs like this. This is super cool. Just walking between this frame by frame and seeing how everything kind of fades on. It's all using masking techniques. All of these characters' designs are kind of on separate layers grouped together, like the head would be one, the hair would be on separate sub layers, but within the same chunk of rig. And you can separate each one of those and add and remove as needed different layers of shading. So you can composite all that together, and while he's walking, like in this one, you can see that highlight appearing on the top of his head, and all these cell shaded colorings appearing and fading in. It's all the same general thing. They made whole layers of this more aggressive, hard shading. They kind of turn up the opacity as they sweep over these character models, and they just make that shadow look like it's moving in a certain direction. The same thing can be said about the highlights down here on these ornamental pieces on the suit, especially this huge color shift one. When it gets to the face, you see that separation where it starts on the face before it's done down here. So the face is being handled and controlled separately, and then all the colors appeared up onto the face and the mask and everything. It's super neat to see that sort of thing. It's a lot of focus on this, and you don't usually get shots like that that handle that lighting so aggressively and so beautifully. It is a very well done shot. They really did sell it with all that effort. Definitely love the way it looks. All right, so I know I nerded out about this one earlier, and it was for good reason. I love the way that they handled the masking on this reveal here of this ice kind of showing up over this building. I like how they handled the lighting. I like how they handled the way it flowed up. I like the color palette change that they did. I assume between this shot and just a few frames later, they probably just basically dropped the saturation on the actual castle itself as a whole. Rather than having it be some darker separate asset, they probably just took the color out of the existing one and then started kind of throwing. I like that they put the particles here to make it feel a little bit more unique, and this sort of fractal looking. I've talked about fractals before in an old Arknights animation breakdown, but fractal noise is a unique kind of noise that has this sort of shattery looking, like aggressive hard edge while it's functioning, you can kind of get this wiry look out of it, and that's something you can do in After Effects. I know because I used to use it all the time. It looks really cool in proper application, and like this with it tinted blue, it would look like ice being formed. It would kind of form like randomized little chunks and sheets of ice. And that's very nice to use for things like this. I bring it up a lot because it is a very popular technique and it goes a very long way. It has a lot of flexibility and a lot of variable uses, this one being just one of thousands. And I really wanted to talk about this shot because this tree is doing what I think that not a lot of people think. I think that it is just a hard drawn asset, just straightforward, no animation applied to it at all, just a heat distortion filter. This is something that they use a lot for fire. Obviously, it's kind of in the name, heat distortion. It's a thing that happens when you look at something super hot, like if you turn on a burner on a stove and you look through it, you can see the heat waves kind of distorting what's behind it. This is pretty much that effect, just made into an effect that you can put on any art or anything. I've seen this used for waves. If you scale it up a lot, it will look like water, and of course fire. So it's got its own flexible ways, just like fractal noise does, where you can use it in a few different varying styles and it would kind of look cool. But the reason I'm pretty sure that this is the case is because there's a lot of general particle effects on here which would kind of trick your brain into thinking they're coming from here, like this pile of sparks right here, and some of the flecks that are coming up from like down here and over here. They're all adding to the movement and having that heat distortion there, but I don't think the tree itself is actually animated in any way, more than it is just slapped with a filter set to loop. Though it is definitely worth mentioning that the little flames down here below the play bar are most definitely just little assets that are, again, thrown in there, set to loop, but those are animated. I'm not trying to say that those are fake, but I'm pretty sure that's most of what I was going to say. So thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you had a good time here. If you want to see me do more animation breakdowns, I try to do these multiple times a month. It's been kind of more difficult in the past month or two to get to them, but I'm trying to get more out. So if you want to see more, let me know what you want to see next, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!